Hey, welcome back to the show. I am so glad you're here today because this one's gonna hit different. If you've ever tried to grow food in Houston or honestly anywhere in Texas and felt like garden just totally fell apart, let me paint a picture for you. It's March, you're pumped. You've got your gloves, you've got your little seedlings. Maybe you splurge on a fancy raised bed. You plant everything, you water it, you are feeling like an absolute garden genius. And then, 3 weeks later, half of it's dead. The other half looks like it's barely surviving. And you're standing there in the heat thinking, hmm, what did I do wrong? Sound familiar? Because I hear some version of that story all the time. And here's what I want you to know right off the bat: it is almost never your fault. Say it with me, it is not your fault. What usually happens is this: your timing was off, your setup wasn't quite right for our climate, and this is the big one: you were following advice that was never actually written for people who garden in Houston. And that is what we are gonna fix today. In this episode, I'm breaking down exactly why spring gardens fail here in Houston and across the Gulf Coast and the rest of Texas. More importantly, I'm giving you the reset plan to actually beat the odds this season. So grab your coffee, grab your agua, whatever you're sipping on. Let's get into it. Okay, so first, let's just talk about why this is such a common experience. Because if you've ever failed at a spring gardening here, I wanted to know you are very good company. Every single spring, I watch the same cycle happen. March rolls around, the nurseries are absolutely packed. Beautiful plants, tomatoes, peppers, herbs, flowers, everything looks incredible. Social media is full of stunning raised bed gardens, and people get excited. They should get excited. Growing your own food is one of the most coolest thing you can actually do. But here's the thing that nobody tells you. Most of that beautiful content you're seeing online, it was not for us. It was not made for Zone 9B. It was not made for Houston summers that feel like you're gardening inside of a steam room. A lot of beginner gardeners and even people who have been at it for a few years get tripped up because they're applying gardening advice that works beautifully in, say, Ohio, Oregon, or the Pacific Northwest. Cooler climates, longer springs, places where you can actually plant in April and not worry about 95-degree heat rolling in 3 weeks later. But that is not our reality. The gap between what the internet says and what actually works in Houston, that gap is where most spring gardens go to die. A lot of people don't fail because they didn't try hard enough. They fail because they were given the wrong advice for where they live. And once you understand that, once you really internalize that, everything starts to shift. So, let's talk about the specific reasons things go wrong. All right, reason number one. This is a big one. The spring planting window is narrow. Most people don't even know it exists. When people think of spring, they think of this long, glorious season, weeks and weeks, even months of mild, beautiful weather. And in a lot of places, that's what exactly spring is. In Houston, spring is more like a moment. It's real, it's lovely, And if you blink or if you start planting 2 or 3 weeks too late, you can completely miss it. Here's what actually happens here: we get some mild weather in late winter and early spring. Then, almost without warning, the heat ramps up fast. And I mean, fast. It can go from perfect planting temperature to actual summer heat in what feels like 2 weeks. And now, why does this matter so much? Because different crops have different relationship with heat. The cool season crops, we are talking about lettuce, spinach, cilantro, broccoli, cauliflower, peas. These are the crops that love mild weather. They want temps in the 50s, 60s, maybe low 70s. Once 80s and 90s come, the heat comes, they're done. They bolt. They turn bitter, or they attract aphids. They just tap out. If you're planting cool season crops in late March and April in Houston, you might be settling yourself up for a heartbreak because the heat is already on its way or possibly already there. On the flip side, planting cool season crop in March and I'm sorry. On the flip side, warm season crops like tomatoes and peppers, cucumbers, and even squash, they can tolerate the 80s, sometimes into the 90s, but they still need time to establish before the full intensity of Houston summer hits. If you plant those too late, they don't have a chance to put down solid roots before conditions get brutal. And here's the sneaky trap that gets so many people: the nurseries. Because the nurseries are stocked. Beautiful. Right when it feels exciting to go shopping. But the timing doesn't always line up with optimal plant timing for every crop. Just because the nursery is full of plants does not mean it's the ideal planting moment for every crop. Houston, timing is everything. I can't say that strongly enough. A 2 or 3 week delay can completely change your results. Not a little, completely. So, one of the first things I tell every gardener I work with is this: before you go shopping, know what's supposed to be in the ground right now for your specific climate. Let that guide the trip, not the other way around. Okay, reason number two. This one is so relatable that I know you're going to feel this in your soul. Instagram gardening advice, Pinterest advice, garden talk, and really most online gardening content that was not written for us. And it's not that the advice is wrong for the people it was written for, it's just that it might as well be written in a different language for us, Gulf Coast gardeners. You've seen these posts, right? Beautiful, lush beds with overflowing broccoli and cauliflower in March and April. Gorgeous cool season gardens that look like something out of a magazine. The advice that comes with them: plant after last frost. Enjoy your spring garden. Start seeds in March. Sounds great, does not translate. Because our issue isn't just frost, our issue is rapid, intense heat, humidity that creates a perfect breeding ground for fungal disease, pest pressure that accelerates like nothing you would find in cooler weather, root rot nematodes. Oh, let's talk about those that completely devastate plants in our soil if you're not prepared for them. Generic gardening content rarely talks about blazing afternoon sun that scorch seedlings in hours. It doesn't talk about exhausted, compacted soil that cannot hold moisture or nutrients. It really doesn't talk about how fast a plant can go from struggling to dead when the combination of heat, humidity, and pest all land at the same time. Houston gardeners are not gardening badly. They are often gardening with advice that was not meant for them. And I think about how many people see a beautiful garden and try to replicate it, especially in social media. without knowing what climate the garden is in, what soil it is they use, and how long that person's spring actually lasts, and how much sun they are actually getting in the afternoon versus the morning. The aesthetics of gardening travel well. The actual advice, much less so. If you've ever felt like you were doing everything right and still failing, there's a very good chance the advice you were following just wasn't designed for where you live. And that is fixable. It's absolutely fixable. Okay, let's get really specific because this is a section I love. This is where we pull back the curtain and look at all the actual mechanics of what goes wrong. There are five main culprits. Uh, Most struggling gardens are dealing with at least two or three of them at the same time. Culprit A is going to be bad timing. We already talked about this. It's worth reinforcing. Planting the wrong thing at the wrong moment is one of the most common ways any garden fails. Culprit B is poor setup. This one's huge, and it's often very invisible until things go wrong. Weak, depleted soil that does not have any life left. Beds that don't drain properly. Stay waterlogged. Containers that are too small for the roots. A location that gets brutal afternoon sun with no relief. Or, conversely, not nearly enough light to support fruiting crops. Setup issues are slow killers. Culprit C is going to be transplant stress. This one really breaks my heart. You bring home a beautiful seedling from the nursery, you put it in the ground, within a few days it looks terrible, wilted, and sad, maybe dropping leaves. What happened? Transplant stress. The plant went from a controlled greenhouse environment to full sun, different soil, and completely different watering situation all at once. Seedlings need to be hardened off. They need to be watered consistently while they establish. And if you plant them in intense afternoon sun without any protection, you might lose them before they even had a chance. Trust me, I've lost so many tiny seedlings to huge trees thanks to transplant stress. Culprit D is going to be no real plant. This is the one that's a little uncomfortable to talk about, but I'm going to say it with love. Think plants first and figuring out the plant later is a recipe for struggle. See this all the time. I've been there too. Someone goes to the nursery, falls in love with a bunch of different plants, and brings them home. And then tries to figure out where to put them, how to space them, when to water them, what they need. Meanwhile, plants are sitting in little pots on the driveway, and the whole thing just unravels. A plant doesn't have to be complicated, but having one before you shop makes everything else so much more easier. And finally, culprit number 5 or culprit E, which is really what ties everything together. Even if you did most things right, if your garden wasn't well established before the heat hit, the heat exposes every single weak point. In Houston, it exposes them fast. Stressed plants are pest magnets. Fungal issues love humidity and stressed plants. You go from this struggling a little to everything is a disaster very quickly. Timing and setup weren't solid from the start. Most plants don't die immediately. They struggle first and then the heat exposes every single weak point. Okay, I want you to take a breath here. Just I just want to talk to you for a second. If your spring garden has failed before, but you spend money, time, got in your family super excited, and then watched everything struggle and die. I know how discouraging that feels. I've heard from so many people who said that one season, bad season, made them feel like, they don't have green thumb. They weren't just cut out for it. And I want to say very clearly that is not what a failed garden means. Gardening failure is almost always feedback anywhere. It's telling you something about timing, soil, or setup, not about your ability to grow things. The goal of your first season or your reset season is not a perfect garden. It's learning the rhythm of your climate, understanding how fast spring moves here, getting a feel for what your specific space needs. That knowledge is worth something. Every gardener who's good at this learned through seasons that didn't go perfectly. And that is what I want to give you today. Okay, let me get really real for a second. Just tell you what I would say if a friend came to me and said, I've tried gardening so many times. It did not work for me. I want to try again. Where do I start? Here's what I would tell them: pick a small growing space, not your entire backyard, one raised bed, or even a few containers. Something manageable where you can actually pay attention to what's happening. Refresh your soil with good quality compost before you do anything else. Don't skip this step, it matters more than what you plant. Choose just a few crops that are right for the season you're actually in. Make sure watering is easy. Skip the random plant haul. Go in with a list. Stick to the list. Save the impulse buys for when you've got a solid foundation. And plant with a real plan, a one that accounts for our heat, our humidity, our seasons. Most importantly, don't judge your gardening ability by a garden that was mistimed from the very start. You deserve a fair shot, and a fair shot starts with the right information for where you live. Okay, friends, we are at the close of this episode, and I just want to leave you with this. If your spring garden has failed before, not alone, you're not doomed, and you're absolutely not someone who cannot garden. Houston gardening has a learning curve, a real one. Our climate is intense, our seasons move fast, and most of the advice out there is not made for us. But this is the thing I want you to hold on to. Once you understand the timing, the setup, and the rhythm of this climate, everything starts to click. You start seeing why things worked or did not work. You start making decisions based on your actual conditions instead of random advice. And you start building the kind of garden that's built to succeed here, not somewhere else. You don't need more random gardening advice, you need the right plan for where you live. And I really believe you can build that. I hope this episode gave you some tools to get there. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this episode helped you, share it with someone who's been struggling with their garden. Because I promise they need to hear this too. And I'll see you in the next episode. Before I let you go, if you're not sure what kind of garden setup or plan is the right fit for your space and this season, I have a free quiz that can help you figure that out. Head out to vibrantrainbowgardens.com/quiz. The link is in the show notes and it takes less than 5 minutes. I promise. Before you go, I have one small ask. It actually has nothing to do with algorithms or downloads. If this episode made you think of one person, a friend, a neighbor, a fellow parent, or someone who's always said, I want to grow a garden, I want to grow my own vegetables and fruits, I just don't know where to start, Would you share this episode with them? This podcast grows almost entirely through word of mouth, and every share helps someone realize that gardening doesn't have to be complicated or overwhelming. It can be gentle, it can fit real life, it can start right where they are. And if you're listening and wondering what kind of gardener you are, or what your next best step actually is, I created a free quiz to help with that. It's called the Growzona Quiz, and it helps you figure out your gardening style, your biggest challenges, and what will actually work for your season of life. Whether you're a total beginner or just need clarity, you can take it at vibrantrainbowgardens.com/quiz, and I will send you personalized guidance right after. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for helping this little garden of a podcast grow. I'll see you in the next episode.